Greetings, YouTube. Today it's time for a pet peeve. And my pet peeve of the day? Bees. Not that I have anything against bees. I'm actually very fond of bees. I understand where they fit into our ecology, and I understand how vital they are to our agriculture. And I fully believe that we should be doing everything we can to protect every um, vitally important agricultural creature, as well as the native uh, insects in our communities. And over the years, I have seen some fascinating insects here in New Hampshire, some of which didn't belong here because of I was near our airport. Not real shocker that the airport had insects that didn't belong here. But I found some very cool ones over the years. But one of the things that's popped up over and over again over the decades that I have been gathering knowledge from documentaries and news articles and books, and now, of course, since I had an internet connection for who knows how long, I can't even remember when I first got one. It was back in the days when your modems tried to kill you with sound. And one of the things that keeps popping up is that bees can't fly according to the laws of aerodynamics. That's bullshit. Now, it is true if you try to build a vessel that is shaped like a bee, with a bee's wing length and ratio and such, on a human scale that would be large enough you could like climb into its head and like look out its eyeballs as glass cockpits. Yeah, you would never get off the ground. But shocker, bees aren't the size of hueys. Bees are this big. That's how big bees are. They're little tiny things. Even the big bumblebee ones that like literally like but yeah, no, they don't function at our scale. They function at their scale. And at their scale, our atmosphere is much closer to water than as we experience it as a very thin gas. Because at that scale, the atmosphere is thicker for them. Why? Because they're at that scale. And their wings beat at the rate they need to beat to lift them and move them through the air. So anyone that says that a bee doesn't fly because of the laws of aerodynamics is dumb. Look at it fly. See it buzz about? It's flying. It must be obeying the laws of physics. Now, it is true that a bee is not shaped like a B-2 bomber because it doesn't need to be. Little pun there. Evolution works with what it's got, and it doesn't expend energy when it doesn't have to. So there are situations, for example, our eyes are just jacked. Our eyes work backwards. Our cones the cones and stuff face in the wrong direction. Everything you see is actually upside down and your brain turns it around. Yeah, our eyes are screwed up. Why? Because when our ancestors started to develop vision, we had wonky material to work with. But it worked. And we now have fully functioning vision. In fact, vision is such an important sense, the ability to see the world around you, that it's evolved like 5 or 6 different times. And I think that they've done some research that it could happen in as little as like 100 or 120,000 years, because vision is that important. From like eye spots, which detect light and nothing else, to eyes that actually begin to focus and pick up details, albeit not as good as ours, because we've had millions of years to evolve these. But yeah, it evolves very quickly. One of my favorite examples of vision is a fish. There's a fish that looks forward, like most fish do, but it also has bits of its eye that look down. Two different sets of eyes, same time. They're completely different. The eyes evolved completely differently. So the actual eye structure of its one set of eyes looking forward is different than the visual structure of the eyes that look down. Just awesome. Evolution works with what it's got. That's just cool. And bees are perfectly designed for their scale and for their lifestyle. They just buzz around, they do their thing, everybody's happy, there are no issues. Yes, you cannot build a bee-shaped scaled thing the size of a Huey. It won't work. Okay, you build things that will work. So when somebody tries to use a bee as an example of they just keep trying and they succeed, they always seem to say a he. Bees aren't he's. Um, they're like sterile females. The he's are very few in number. They don't last long. They breed and they die. The rest of the colony is either the queen, which is definitely female, or the sterile female drones. Yeah, there aren't a lot of keys in a hive. Uh, but yeah, it's not stick-to-itiveness. It's not gumption. It's not a desire to do something regardless of the odds. No, it's that they evolved at a different scale than us. I mean, if you take an ant and you drop an ant out of a 747, that ant's going to be fine. Literally, that ant will survive the atmospheric change. It's 36,000 feet up. There isn't a lot of atmosphere, and the pressure difference is going to really adversely affect you. It's really not going to affect that ant. And falling that far, yeah, it's so small, and the weight to surface area ratio is so high as far as the ant's concerned. It's just gonna ooh, boonk, 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 and be on its way. Yeah, you can pretty much drop an ant from anywhere in our atmosphere, and it's going to be just ducky. Why? Different scales. That's why you see it when people talking about, ants can carry X amount of weight above their, for their, above their own weight. Yes, because at that scale, it's easy to do. It's hard to do at our scale. There's a reason ants are shaped the way they are and elephants are shaped the way they are. If you want big egg, be big like an elephant or some of the big uh, dinosaurs, you have to have tree trunk sized legs. There's a reason insects don't get much bigger than about this, because you can't. The skeletal structure is such, because they're exoskeletons, you get to a certain point, the legs have to get thicker and thicker and thicker to be able to support the weight, and they then squeeze out the existence of muscles and vessels and things like that. So there's a weight limit, size limit in our atmosphere and our gravity for an insect. You just can't go above a certain limit. So when you see giant insects in fantasy, that's okay. It's fantasy. If you see them in science fiction, yeah, it's dubious. We all ignore it because, let's face it, giant insects are cool. Um, but yeah, bees are fine. They fly because they should, because they evolved that particular role, and that's what they do. Um, Fascinating book I read years ago, and now the name skips me, we dealt with hornets and the fact that all of the stinging insects that we now know and are all very much related to each other, but ants evolved out of them, that they were ground nesting wasps and hornets that spent more and more time ground nesting to the point where they just lost their wings and kept going, and eventually they lost their stingers because they didn't need them. So the ones that kept their stingers kept them because of their particular lifestyle, needed them. But lots of ants have lifestyles that don't need them, so they don't have those stingers anymore. Fascinating thing that ants are related to wasps. I didn't know that until I read that book. It was very cool. I really enjoyed it. Um, yeah, I often read very tightly focused books about very obscure topics. I read a book on about salt. I read one about cod. I read one about how to store books. Yeah, I read books like that. But yeah, bees fly because bees can fly. It's that simple. So anyone tells you that it should be an inspirational message to you from the bees is full of bull. Don't listen to them. Listen to the bees. They make a lovely sound. They're vital to our economy, ecology, and to our agriculture, and they're just really cool.